The espresso machine hissed behind Kendra Holloway as she froze mid-motion. Her hand gripped a ceramic mug so tight her knuckles went pale. The smell of fresh coffee filled the warm Brooklyn cafe, mixing with the scent of the cinnamon rolls she had pulled from the oven 20 minutes ago. Edison bulbs cast golden light across exposed brick walls. Soft jazz played from the speakers. Everything was perfect. Everything was normal. Until he walked in. Standing in the doorway of Honey and Steam, silhouetted against the gray November afternoon, was the one man Kendra had spent 5 years running from. Siwoo Dong, Korean Mafia boss, the most dangerous man she had ever known, the father of her son. And he was staring directly at the little boy sitting at the corner table. Kendra stopped breathing. Micah sat by the window at his favorite spot, the small wooden table with the wobbly leg she kept forgetting to fix. He was eating orange slices, his little fingers sticky with juice. He was humming a song from his favorite cartoon. He was completely unaware that his entire world was about to collapse. Siwoo stepped forward. His Italian leather shoes clicked against the hardwood floor. Behind him, 2 men in dark suits flanked the entrance, their faces blank and threatening. Bodyguards. Of course he traveled with bodyguards. He was the head of one of the most powerful crime families on the West Coast. The years had been kind to him. He was 37 now, still devastatingly handsome in that sharp, dangerous way that had first drawn Kendra to him. His black suit was perfectly tailored, probably cost more than her monthly rent. A crisp white shirt lay open at the collar. A distinctive gold ring glinted on his finger. His jaw was set hard, and his dark eyes moved slowly from Micah back to Kendra. She watched recognition dawn across his face like a death sentence. The boy had his father's exact jawline, his father's precise nose, the same shape of his eyes, though lighter in color. The same distinctive birthmark behind his left ear that Siwoo had, that his father had, that his grandfather had. 5 years of hiding. 5 years of building a new life. 5 years of carefully constructed lies and fake names, and looking over her shoulder every single day. All of it crumbled in 3 seconds. The mug slipped from Kendra's fingers. It shattered on the floor behind the counter, and she barely heard it. Her heart was pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. The jazz music, the chatter of the few remaining customers, the hiss of steam from the espresso machine. Siwoo's expression was unreadable, cold, calculating, the same mask he wore when he was conducting business, the same mask he wore right before he did terrible things to people who betrayed him. Kendra had seen that mask before. She knew what it meant. Before we continue with this story, I need you to do something for me. This story is about secrets, sacrifice, and a love that refuses to die no matter how hard you try to kill it. If you have ever kept a secret to protect someone you love, if you have ever run from something that terrified you, I need you to hit that subscribe button right now. I pour my heart into these stories, and it genuinely hurts when people watch without subscribing. Please, just take 1 second and subscribe. It's free, and it means the world to me. Also, drop a comment telling me which city you are watching from. I want to know where all my amazing viewers are located. Now, let's continue. Kendra forced herself to move. She bent down and started picking up the broken pieces of the mug, using the motion to hide her shaking hands. Her mind raced through options. The back door led to the alley. She could grab Micah and run, but Siwoo's men were already positioned at the entrance. There was no way out. She was trapped. When she stood up again, Siwoo had moved closer. He was standing in the middle of the cafe now, maybe 15 feet from Micah's table. The other customers had gone quiet, sensing the tension in the room. An older woman clutched her latte and stared. A young couple exchanged nervous glances. One of Siwoo's bodyguards stepped forward and spoke quietly to the remaining customers. Kendra could not hear what he said, but within 2 minutes, the cafe was empty except for her, Siwoo, his men, and her son. Micah finally looked up from his orange slices. His face was sticky and happy, and Kendra's heart shattered into a million pieces. He was so innocent, so unaware. He had no idea that the imposing man in the expensive suit was about to change everything. "Mommy, who is that man?" Micah asked, his voice curious and unafraid. "Why does he look so serious?" Kendra opened her mouth to answer, but no words came out. Siwoo's voice cut through the silence like a blade. Low, controlled, lethal. How old is he, Kendra? She gripped the edge of the counter. Her legs felt like they might give out. She had practiced this moment in her nightmares 1,000 times, but nothing prepared her for the reality of it. He is 4, she lied, forcing her voice to stay steady. His father was someone I dated after I left California. You do not know him. Siwoo tilted his head slightly. His expression did not change, but something flickered in his eyes. Something dangerous. I see, he said quietly. Then he reached into his jacket pocket. Kendra's heart stopped completely. Her body tensed, ready to throw herself in front of Micah, ready to do whatever it took to protect him. But Siwoo did not pull out a weapon. He pulled out his phone. He swiped through it slowly, then turned the screen to face her. On it was an old photograph. A little boy, maybe 5 years old, standing next to an elderly Korean woman in front of a traditional house. The boy in the picture had the same jawline as Micah, the same nose, the same eyes. It was Siwoo as a child, and the resemblance to Micah was undeniable. My grandmother passed away last month, Siwoo said, his voice carefully controlled. I was going through her photographs, preparing for the funeral. I kept looking at this picture, feeling like I was missing something, like I was forgetting something important. He paused. Then 3 days ago, I was in this neighborhood on business. I glanced through your window and saw a little boy sitting at that same table, eating an apple, and I realized why this photograph had been haunting me. Kendra's legs buckled. She caught herself on the counter, barely staying upright. He is 5 years old, is he not, Kendra? Siwoo continued, stepping closer. He was born approximately 9 months after you disappeared from Lowe's Angels, after you vanished from my life without a trace, without a word, without any explanation. His voice cracked slightly, the first sign of emotion breaking through his mask. You took my son from me. You hid him for 5 years, and now you stand there and lie to my face about his age, about his father, about everything. Micah slid down from his chair, his orange forgotten. He walked over to Kendra and grabbed her hand, looking up at her with confusion and concern. Mommy, why are you crying? Kendra touched her face and realized tears were streaming down her cheeks. She had not even noticed. Siwoo crouched down so he was at Micah's eye level. His entire demeanor transformed instantly. The coldness melted away. His voice became soft and warm. Hello, little one, he said gently. My name is Siwoo. I am an old friend of your mother's from a long time ago. What is your name? Micah, the boy answered, still holding Kendra's hand. Micah Holloway, are you really Mommy's friend? How come she never told me about you? Siwoo glanced up at Kendra, and his eyes were ice again. That is an excellent question, Micah, he said. Perhaps your mother can explain that to both of us. He stood up slowly, his gaze never leaving Kendra's face. I think you and I need to have a very long conversation, he said. And before you answer, before you even think about lying to me again, remember one thing. He stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, close enough that she could see the pain buried beneath the anger in his eyes. I have killed men for smaller betrayals than this one. I have destroyed entire families for less. But you, Kendra, you I loved, you I would have died for. And you repaid that love by stealing my child and disappearing like I meant nothing to you. He paused, letting the words sink in. So choose your next words very, very carefully. The story of how Kendra Holloway ended up pregnant by a Korean Mafia boss started with a flat tire on Sunset Boulevard 5.5 years ago. She was 26 years old back then, working as a pastry chef at an upscale restaurant in West Hollywood called Marigold. It was her dream job. She had worked her way up from dishwasher to line cook to dessert specialist over 3 years. Her cream brulee had been featured in Lowe's Angels magazine. Her chocolate souffle made grown men weep. She was driving home after a brutal double shift, exhausted and running on caffeine and determination. It was 2 a.m. The streets were mostly empty. She was thinking about the lavender honey cake she wanted to experiment with the next day when her front tire blew out near a nightclub she had never noticed before. No spare tire, dead phone battery, 2 a.m. on a sketchy stretch of Sunset Boulevard. Kendra stood beside her useless car and considered her options. She could walk to the nightclub and ask to use their phone. She could try to flag down a passing car. She could start walking the 3 miles to her apartment in Silver Lake and hope for the best. Before she could decide, a black Mercedes pulled up beside her. The window rolled down smoothly, and Kendra saw Siwoo Dong for the first time. He was 32 years old, impeccably dressed in a dark suit, handsome in a way that made her immediately nervous. He had sharp cheekbones and dark eyes and the kind of presence that made the air feel heavier. "Car trouble?" he asked. His voice was calm and polite, not threatening at all. Kendra nodded, keeping her distance from the car. "Flat tire, dead phone. I am trying to figure out my next move." He studied her for a moment, then pulled his car to the curb and got out. He walked over to her car, examined the tire, and shook his head. "This tire is destroyed. You will need a tow." He pulled out his phone and made a call in Korean, speaking rapidly. When he hung up, he said, "A tow truck will be here in 20 minutes. In the meantime, may I offer you a ride home?" Every instinct Kendra had screamed at her to say no. Strange man, expensive car, middle of the night. This was how horror movies started. But there was something about him, something in the calm politeness of his voice, something in the way he kept a respectful distance, not crowding her, not pressuring her, something that made her trust him despite her better judgment. "Okay," she said, "thank you." He drove her to her apartment in Silver Lake. He did not try anything. He did not ask for her number. He did not make any inappropriate comments. He simply drove, making polite small talk about Los Angeles traffic and the weather, and when they arrived at her building, he waited until she was safely inside before driving away. Kendra assumed she would never see him again. She was wrong. The next night, Siwoo showed up at Marigold. He was seated in her section of the restaurant, even though it was the dessert station and customers rarely requested to sit there. He ordered dinner, but barely touched it. When the dessert course came, he ordered everything on the menu. He came back the next night, and the next, and the next. For 2 weeks straight, Siwoo Dong came to Marigold every single night and ordered dessert. Only dessert. He would sit at the same table, eat her creations slowly and deliberately, and leave a tip that was larger than most people's rent. On the 14th night, Kendra finally approached his table. "Okay," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. "I need to know, are you stalking me or do you just really love chocolate?" Siwoo smiled. It was the first time she had seen him smile, and it transformed his entire face. The coldness melted away, replaced by warmth and something that looked almost like shyness. "Both," he admitted, "but mostly the first one, though your chocolate souffle is extraordinary." Kendra laughed despite herself. "That is either the creepiest or the most flattering thing anyone has ever said to me." "I am hopping for flattering," Siwoo said. "I apologize if I have made you uncomfortable. I simply could not stop thinking about you after that night. The way you handled yourself. The way you were clearly terrified but refused to show it. The way you thanked me like I had done something remarkable when all I did was offer a ride." He paused, looking down at his half-eaten creme brulee. "I do not meet many people who interest me," he continued quietly. "But you interested me from the first moment I saw you. I wanted to know more about you. I wanted to hear your voice again. I wanted to understand why you stayed in my mind like a song I could not forget." He looked up at her. "If I have overstepped, I will leave and never bother you again. But if there is any chance you might want to have dinner with me, not here, somewhere you are not working, I would be honored." Kendra should have said no. She knew nothing about this man except that he drove an expensive car and had excellent taste in desserts. He could be anyone. He could be dangerous. But she said yes. Their first date was at a small Italian restaurant in Los Feliz. Siwoo was charming and attentive and asked her more questions about herself than anyone had in years. He wanted to know about her childhood in Atlanta, about her culinary training, about her dreams and fears and favorite books. He listened like everything she said mattered. She learned he was a businessman. Import and export, he said vaguely. He had moved to Los Angeles from Seoul when he was 18, following his father. He had worked hard and built something successful. He did not elaborate on what exactly that something was. She did not push. She was too busy falling for him. Their relationship moved fast. Within a month, Kendra was spending most of her nights at his Malibu mansion, a sprawling estate on a cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Within 2 months, she had a key and a closet full of clothes he had bought her. Siwoo was unlike any man she had ever known. He was powerful and controlled in public, commanding rooms full of people with just a look. But with her, in private, he was gentle, tender, almost vulnerable. He cooked her Korean dishes his grandmother had taught him, standing in his enormous kitchen in a white t-shirt and sweatpants, explaining each ingredient and its significance. He brushed her hair while she fell asleep, running his fingers through her braids with a reverence that made her feel treasured. He told her things he said he had never told anyone, about his cold father, about his beloved grandmother, about the loneliness of being powerful in a world that feared him. "You make me feel human," he told her one night, holding her close in his massive bed while the ocean crashed against the cliffs below. "Before you, I was just a machine, working, acquiring, controlling. You reminded me that there is more to life than power." Kendra believed him. She loved him with everything she had. And then, 3 months into their relationship, she discovered the truth about what he really did. It was a late night at the mansion. Kendra had fallen asleep in the bedroom and woken up around 2 in the morning to find Siwoo's side of the bed empty. She went looking for him, wandering through the dark hallways of the enormous house. She heard raised voices coming from his office, angry voices. She should have turned around. She should have gone back to bed, but something pulled her forward. She pushed open the wrong door at the worst possible moment. Siwoo was standing in the center of the room, a gun in his hand. At his feet, a man knelt on the marble floor, bleeding from a wound on his head. 2 of Siwoo's guards stood nearby, watching impassively. Blood was pooling on the white marble, so much blood. Kendra gasped. Everyone turned to look at her. For one terrible moment, Siwoo's face was completely blank. He looked at her like she was a stranger, like she was a problem to be solved. Then the mask cracked, and she saw horror in his eyes, horror that she had seen this, horror that she now knew what he was. The guards moved toward her, but Siwoo held up his hand. "Leave us," he said quietly. The guards dragged the bleeding man out of the room. Kendra stood frozen in the doorway, unable to move, unable to speak, unable to process what she had just witnessed. Siwoo set the gun down on his desk and walked toward her slowly, like she was a frightened animal he did not want to spook. "Kendra," he said softly, "I can explain." "You were going to kill him," she whispered. "Yes." "You have killed people before." A pause. "Yes." "Who are you? What are you?" Siwoo stopped a few feet away from her. His face was pained. "I am the head of the Dong family," he said quietly. "We control most of the organized crime operations on the West Coast, gambling, money laundering, protection. Other things I will not burden you with." He paused. "I am what most people would call a mafia boss, Kendra. I have done terrible things. I have ordered terrible things. I have built an empire on fear and violence and blood." Kendra's legs gave out. She slid down the doorframe until she was sitting on the floor. "I understand if you want to leave," Siwoo continued, his voice breaking slightly. "I understand if you hate me now. I understand if everything we had is destroyed." He crouched down in front of her. "But I need you to know that I never lied to you about the important things. I love you, Kendra. I have never loved anyone before you. I will never love anyone after you. And I would burn the entire world down to keep you safe." Kendra looked at him. At this man she thought she knew. At this stranger with blood on his shoes. She should have left. She should have run screaming into the night and never looked back. Instead, she stayed. For 2 more months, she stayed, because despite everything, she loved him. Because when they were alone together, he was still gentle. He was still the man who cooked her Korean food and brushed her hair and held her like she was precious. The violence existed in a separate world, one she tried not to think about. She told herself it was not her business. She told herself people were complicated. She told herself love was enough. Then she discovered she was pregnant. And everything changed. Kendra found out about the pregnancy on a Tuesday morning. She took 3 tests just to be sure, all positive. She sat on the bathroom floor of Siwoo's mansion and stared at those 2 pink lines and felt the entire world tilt beneath her. A baby. She was going to have a baby with a mafia boss, with a man who killed people. What kind of life would that child have? What kind of danger would they always be in? She knew she needed to tell Siwoo. She knew he would probably be happy. He had mentioned wanting children someday, mentioned wanting to build something that lasted beyond his criminal empire. He would protect her and the baby with everything he had. But something held her back, something she could not name. She decided to wait a few days, to process, to figure out how she felt before she told him. That night, everything fell apart. Siwoo was hosting a meeting at the mansion. Important people from his organization, men Kendra usually avoided. She was supposed to stay in the bedroom wing, away from the business. But she got thirsty. She went to the kitchen for water. She took a wrong turn. She ended up outside Siwoo's office again. This time, she did not open the door. She just stood in the hallway and listened to the voices drifting through the crack. Siwoo's lieutenant, a man named Park, was speaking. The Baron family knows about the woman. They have been asking questions, taking photographs. They think she is your weakness. They are correct, Siwoo replied calmly. Then we need to discuss options. If she becomes a liability. A long pause. What kind of options? Siwoo asked. We could relocate her. Give her a new identity somewhere far away. Or we could handle it more permanently. Make sure she can never be used against you. Kendra's blood ran cold. Handle it more permanently. She knew what that meant. She had seen the blood on the marble floor. And if I am not willing to do either? Siwoo asked. Then you are putting the entire organization at risk. Sentiment is dangerous in our world, boss. You know that better than anyone. Another long pause. Kendra pressed her hand against her stomach, against the tiny life growing inside her, and felt terror like she had never known. I will think about it, Siwoo finally said. Kendra did not wait to hear more. She went back to the bedroom. She packed a bag with shaking hands. She took $10,000 from the safe where Siwoo kept emergency cash. She wrote a note that said only "I'm sorry" and left it on his pillow. Then she climbed out the window, dropped into the garden below, and ran. She did not look back. The first year was the hardest. Kendra moved constantly. Detroit first, where she had a cousin who let her stay for a few weeks. Then Chicago, where she worked under the table at a bakery until her stomach got too big to hide. Then Philadelphia, where she gave birth to Micah in a hospital where no one knew her name. She named him Micah because it meant, who is like God, and she needed to believe in something bigger than herself. She gave him her mother's maiden name, Holloway, instead of her own. For the first year of Micah's life, Kendra barely slept. She watched the news constantly, expecting to see Siwoo's face. She scanned every crowd for his men. She flinched at every black car, every Asian man in a suit, every knock on the door. The fear never fully went away, but eventually it dulled enough for her to start building a life. She ended up in Brooklyn almost by accident. She was passing through New York on her way to Boston when she saw a "For Lease" sign in the window of a small storefront in Williamsburg. The neighborhood was trendy and expensive, but the building was old and neglected. The landlord was desperate. Kendra used the last of her stolen money to secure the lease and buy basic equipment. She named the cafe Honey and Steam after her two favorite things about baking. She worked 18-hour days for the first 2 years, building a customer base from scratch. She made everything herself, from the croissants to the specialty coffee drinks. She learned to roast her own beans. She cultivated relationships with local suppliers. Slowly, impossibly, she built something good. Micah grew up in that cafe. He took his first steps behind the counter. He said his first word, "cookie," while reaching for a chocolate chip cookie she had just pulled from the oven. He learned to count by counting coffee beans. He learned to read by sounding out the menu board. He was a happy child, curious and kind and full of joy. He had his father's intelligence, his father's intensity, but none of his father's darkness. At least none that Kendra could see. She told him his father had died before he was born. A car accident, quick and painless. She hated lying to him, but she did not know what else to do. How do you explain to a child that his father is a murderer? How do you explain that she ran to protect him from that life? She did not date. She did not make close friends except for Jocelyn, a photographer she met at a neighborhood block party who became her emergency contact and babysitter, and the closest thing to family she had in New York. She kept everyone at a distance because distance was safe. For 5 years, she lived in fear, but she also lived in hope, hope that she had escaped. Hope that Siwoo had forgotten about her. Hope that Micah would grow up normal and safe and free. She should have known that hope was a luxury she could not afford. Back in the present, the cafe was silent except for the soft hum of the refrigerator behind the counter. Siwoo had closed the shop. His men stood guard at the doors. Micah had been gently persuaded to go into the back kitchen with a chocolate croissant and Kendra's phone, watching cartoons while the adults talked. Kendra and Siwoo sat across from each other at the wobbly table by the window, the same table where Micah had been eating orange slices when his father walked in. Kendra told him everything. She told him about overhearing the conversation between him and Park, about believing she was a liability that needed to be handled, about the terror of those first months alone and pregnant, about Detroit and Chicago and Philadelphia, about building a new life brick by brick in Brooklyn. Siwoo listened without interrupting. His face was a mask, revealing nothing. When she finished, he was silent for a long moment. "The conversation you overheard," he finally said, "was about a different woman." Kendra blinked. "What?" "One of my men, Lieutenant Cho, had been having an affair with a woman who turned out to be an FBI informant. She was gathering evidence to bring down the organization. Park was discussing how to handle that situation." Siwoo paused. "She was the liability we were discussing, not you, never you." The floor tilted beneath Kendra. "I would have died before I let anyone harm you," Siwoo continued, his voice rough with emotion. "I spent 2 years looking for you after you disappeared. I hired private investigators on 3 continents. I could not eat. I could not sleep. I drove everyone around me insane with my obsession." He looked down at his hands. "And then I forced myself to accept that you did not want to be found, that you had chosen to leave me, that whatever we had was not enough for you." He looked up, and Kendra saw pain in his eyes. Real, raw pain. "I never imagined this, that you left because you thought I would kill you, that you spent 5 years hiding our child from me because of a misunderstanding." Kendra felt tears streaming down her face again. 5 years of running, 5 years of fear, 5 years of denying Micah a father. All because she misunderstood one conversation. "I am so sorry," she whispered. Siwoo's expression hardened. "Sorry does not give me back his first words. Sorry does not give me back his first steps. Sorry does not give me back 5 years of birthdays and Christmases and ordinary Tuesday mornings." He stood up abruptly, packing to the window and looking out at the gray Brooklyn street. "You made a choice based on fear and assumptions. You never asked me. You never gave me a chance to explain. You just ran." He turned back to face her. "Do you have any idea what that did to me? I loved you more than I have ever loved anything in my entire life, and you vanished like I was nothing." "You are a killer," Kendra said quietly. "I watched you point a gun at a man's head. What was I supposed to think?" "You were supposed to trust me." Siwoo's voice rose for the first time. "You were supposed to know that I would never hurt you. You were supposed to give me the benefit of the doubt." Kendra stood up too, her own anger rising. "Trust you? I watched you almost execute someone. How was I supposed to trust you after that?" "Because I loved you. Because I had given you no reason to fear me." "You had given me every reason. You are a mafia boss. Violence is your language." They stood there, glaring at each other across the small table, both breathing hard. 5 years of silence and fear and longing had exploded into this moment. Finally, Siwoo spoke again, his voice quiet. "Here is what is going to happen. You and Micah are coming back to Los Angeles with me. I have already had my lawyers begin custody proceedings. My son will know his father. He will know his heritage. He will be protected and provided for." "No," Kendra said immediately. "You cannot just take us. I have a life here, a business, friends." "You have nothing I cannot replicate 10 times over in California." Siwoo stepped closer. "You can fight me on this, Kendra, but I promise you, if you do, I will use every resource I have to win. The courts, the lawyers, everything. You hid my child from me for 5 years. No judge will look kindly on that." Kendra's blood ran cold. She knew he was right. She knew how this would look in a custody battle. Unfit mother who kidnapped a child and fled across the country. "Please," she said softly, "do not do this. Do not take him from me." Siwoo's expression flickered. For a moment, she saw the man she had loved beneath the mask. I am not trying to take him from you, he said quietly. I am trying to give him a father. I am trying to be part of his life. You can fight me or you can work with me. But either way, I am not leaving New York without my son. Kendra did not sleep that night. After Siwoo left, promising to return in 48 hours for her decision, she did what she always did when she was scared. She tried to run. She packed 2 suitcases, emptied the cash from her safe, bundled Micah into his warmest coat, and headed for the door. She did not make it 3 blocks. A black SUV pulled up beside her on Bedford Avenue. One of Siwoo's men rolled down the window. He was polite, almost apologetic. Mr. Dong asked me to remind you that running will only make things worse, he said. Please go home. Get some rest. He is not your enemy, Ms. Holloway. Kendra went home. The next morning, she called a lawyer, a family law specialist in Manhattan with excellent reviews. The lawyer listened to her story and gave her a blunt assessment. You hid a child from his father for 5 years, the lawyer said. In family court, that matters. It suggests you are willing to put your own wishes above the child's best interests. Combined with Mr. Dong's resources, I am sorry, but your chances of winning a custody battle are very slim. Kendra hung up feeling sick. She called her sister Denise in Atlanta. Denise, ever practical, told her to stop running and face the situation head-on. Micah deserved to know his father. Running would only make everything worse. She called Jocelyn. Jocelyn, ever protective, suggested calling the FBI and reporting Siwoo for his crimes. Kendra did neither of those things. Instead, she made a decision. She found the business card Siwoo had left behind, an address in Manhattan, a penthouse suite at a luxury hotel near Central Park. She arranged for Jocelyn to watch Micah for the afternoon. Then she took the subway into the city. The hotel was ridiculous, all marble and gold and crystal chandeliers. Kendra felt underdressed in her jeans and sweater, but she squared her shoulders and walked past the security like she belonged there. She took the elevator to the top floor. She stood in front of Siwoo's door. She knocked. When he opened it, she saw surprise flicker across his face. He was wearing a simple black shirt and dark pants, more casual than she had ever seen him. I am not coming to Los Angeles as your prisoner, she said before he could speak. If you want me and Micah in your life, you are going to do this my way. Siwoo studied her for a long moment. Then he stepped aside to let her in. Tell me your terms, he said. Kendra walked into the suite and stopped cold. On the coffee table were photographs, dozens of them, pictures of her and Micah over the past 5 years, at the park, at the grocery store, walking to preschool, celebrating birthdays, at the cafe, at the beach in Coney Island last summer. Siwoo had been watching them. You knew, she said quietly. You have known about Micah for longer than 3 days. Siwoo closed the door behind her. 8 months, he admitted. One of my investigators found you by accident while working an unrelated case. I flew out immediately. I saw Micah through the cafe window. He paused. I watched you both for 3 days before I returned to Los Angeles. Why did you wait? Why pretend to just discover him? Siwoo walked to the window overlooking Central Park. The afternoon light made him look tired, older than he was. Because I have enemies, Kendra. Enemies who would use you and Micah against me without hesitation. I needed time to ensure your safety, to put protections in place, to eliminate certain threats. Kendra's stomach dropped. What threats? Siwoo turned to face her. A man named Victor Choi. He runs a rival crime family based in San Francisco. He has been trying to destroy me for years. 3 years ago, I took something from him, something valuable. He has never forgiven me. What did you take? His territory in Seattle, his most profitable gambling operation, several of his key lieutenants who now work for me. Siwoo paused. He has been waiting for an opportunity to hurt me. 2 months ago, he discovered you and Micah exist. The room suddenly felt very cold. Victor has people in New York, Siwoo continued. They have been watching you, waiting, planning. Planning what? To take you, both of you, to use you as leverage against me, to force me to surrender everything I have built or watch my son suffer. Kendra sat down heavily on the nearest chair. Her legs would not hold her anymore. "The man who delivered coffee beans to your cafe last week," Siwoo said quietly. "The new family that moved into the apartment above yours. The woman who has been bringing her daughter to your weekend story time sessions. All of them work for Victor Choi." Kendra thought about Mrs. Patterson and her sweet little girl Lily. They had been coming to story time for a month. Micah loved playing with Lily. "All a lie, all a trap. I did not approach you sooner because I was trying to find a way to keep you safe without disrupting your life," Siwoo said. "I had my people watching Victor's people, intercepting their communications, sabotaging their plans, but Victor is running out of patience. He is planning to take Micah within the week. I cannot protect you from a distance anymore." As if on cue, Siwoo's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and his face went pale. "They moved up the timeline," he said. "Victor's men just broke into your cafe." Kendra's heart stopped. "Micah is supposed to be with Jocelyn. Where is he right now?" "I left him with her, at her apartment in Queens." Siwoo was already dialing. He listened for a long moment, his jaw tightening. Then he hung up. Jocelyn is not answering. The next 20 minutes were the most terrifying of Kendra's life. Siwoo transformed before her eyes. Gone was the conflicted ex-lover, the wounded father. In his place was the Mafia boss. Cold, efficient, lethal. He barked orders into his phone in rapid Korean. Within minutes, 4 black SUVs were waiting downstairs. Armed men poured out of rooms throughout the hotel. Weapons appeared from hidden holsters. They raced across the Williamsburg Bridge, weaving through traffic like it did not exist. Kendra sat in the back of the lead SUV, her fingernails cutting crescents into her palms. She could not stop thinking about Micah, about his smile, about his laugh, about all the things Victor Choi might do to her baby. Siwoo kept calling Jocelyn. No answer, no answer, no answer. Then, finally, a pickup. "I cannot talk long," Jocelyn whispered. Her voice was shaking. "2 men followed us from the park. We are hiding in a bathroom at a restaurant in Cobble Hill. I do not know how long before they find us." "Which restaurant?" Siwoo demanded. "The Italian place on Smith Street. Bella Luna, please hurry. Micah is scared. I am scared, please." Siwoo redirected the convoy. They arrived at Bella Luna 8 minutes later. Kendra saw 2 men in dark suits circling the building, peering in windows, checking exits. Victor's men. What happened next was fast and brutal. Siwoo's men moved like shadows. Silent, precise, deadly. There were no gunshots, no screaming, just quick, efficient violence that ended before Kendra fully processed it was happening. Then Siwoo himself disappeared into the restaurant. Kendra waited in the SUV, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might explode. Minutes passed. Each second felt like an hour. The restaurant door opened. Siwoo emerged with Micah in his arms. Micah was crying, his face pressed against Siwoo's shoulder, his little body shaking. But he was alive. He was safe. Kendra threw open the car door and ran. "Mommy!" Micah reached for her as soon as he saw her. Siwoo handed him over gently, carefully, and Kendra held her son so tight she was probably hurting him. "It is okay, baby," she whispered into his hair. "Mommy is here, you are safe, everything is okay." She looked up at Siwoo. His face was a mask again, but his eyes were not. She saw fear in them, real fear, and relief, and something deeper, something that looked like love. "I will kill anyone who tries to hurt him," Siwoo said quietly. "Anyone." Kendra believed him completely. Jocelyn stumbled out of the restaurant behind them, pale and shaking, but unharmed. She ran to Kendra and Micah, wrapping her arms around both of them. "I am so sorry," she kept saying. "They came out of nowhere. I did not know what to do." "You did everything right," Kendra told her. "You kept him safe." Siwoo was back on his phone, issuing more orders. His men were loading the unconscious bodies of Victor's people into one of the SUVs, cleaning up the scene. Then his phone buzzed again. He read the message and went very still. "We need to move," he said. "Now." "What is it?" Kendra asked. Siwoo met her eyes. His expression was murderous. "Victor has Jocelyn's sister. He is offering a trade, her life for Micah." Jocelyn collapsed against the SUV. Naomi. Oh my God, Naomi. Naomi was Jocelyn's younger sister, a nursing student at Columbia. She had nothing to do with any of this. She was just a 23-year-old girl trying to finish her degree. How did they know about her? Kendra demanded. They have been watching all of us, Siwoo said grimly. They know everyone connected to you, everyone you care about. He turned to Jocelyn. I will get your sister back, I promise you, but I need you to trust me. Jocelyn nodded, tears streaming down her face. They spent the night at a safe house in New Jersey, an unremarkable house in an unremarkable suburb, surrounded by Siwoo's men. Micah, exhausted from the trauma, fell asleep in Kendra's arms almost immediately. Kendra and Siwoo sat at the kitchen table, planning. I will not trade Micah, Siwoo said flatly. That is non-negotiable. I would never let you, Kendra replied. But we cannot leave Naomi to die either. We will not. Siwoo pulled out his phone and made a series of calls. When he finished, he explained the situation. For 8 months, while he was monitoring Victor's surveillance of Kendra and Micah, he was also building a case. Financial records showing Victor's illegal activities, witness testimonies from former associates, recorded conversations that would put Victor away for life. I was planning to use this as insurance, Siwoo said. A guarantee that Victor would never touch you or Micah, but if he wants a confrontation, I will give him one. The meeting was set for the following night, an abandoned warehouse in Newark. Victor would bring Naomi, Siwoo would come alone. Except he would not really be alone. The next night, Kendra watched from a surveillance van as Siwoo walked into the warehouse. He was wearing a wire. His men were positioned throughout the building, hidden but ready. Inside, Victor Choi waited with 6 of his men and Naomi, bound to a chair. Victor was a thin man in his 50s, elegant in a way that belied his cruelty. He smiled when he saw Siwoo. Where is the boy? Safe, far from here. Siwoo stopped 10 feet away. Let the girl go, Victor. She has nothing to do with this. She has everything to do with this. She is leverage. Surely you understand leverage. I understand that you are making a mistake. Siwoo reached into his jacket. Victor's men raised their weapons, but Siwoo only pulled out a phone. I have copies of this information in the hands of federal prosecutors in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and New York, Siwoo said calmly. I have copies with journalists at major publications. Everything, your finances, your operations, your murders, all documented, all admissible. Victor's smile faltered. If Naomi is not released unharmed in the next 60 seconds, all of it goes public. Your organization will be destroyed. You will spend the rest of your life in a federal prison. And everyone who ever worked for you will scramble to make deals, giving up more information to save themselves. Silence. Victor's face contorted with rage. You are bluffing. Try me. 30 seconds passed. Victor's men looked nervous. One of them lowered his weapon slightly. Fine, Victor spat. He nodded to one of his men who cut Naomi's bonds. She stumbled toward Siwoo, who guided her toward the exit where his men were waiting. But as she passed, Victor grabbed her arm. This is not over, he hissed at Siwoo. Your woman and your boy will never be safe. I will find them eventually, and when I do. He did not finish the sentence. Siwoo moved faster than Kendra had ever seen anyone move. One moment he was standing still. The next, Victor was on the ground, bleeding. You will not find them, Siwoo said, his voice ice cold, because you will be in federal custody within the hour, and if by some miracle you ever get out, I will be waiting. His men flooded the warehouse. Victor's people surrendered without a fight. It was over. Naomi ran to the van where Jocelyn was waiting. The sisters embraced, both sobbing. Kendra watched Siwoo walk out of the warehouse as the sun rose over Newark. He was bruised, exhausted, but victorious. He had saved Naomi. He had protected Micah. He had destroyed his enemy. He had done terrible things to do it, but he had done them for her, for their son. Kendra got out of the van and walked toward him. Come home with me, Siwoo said quietly. To Los Angeles, not as prisoners, as family. Let me spend the rest of my life making up for the years I lost. Let me be Micah's father. Let me try to be the man you once loved." Kendra looked at him, at this dangerous, powerful, terrifying man who had just moved heaven and earth to protect her child, her son's father, the man she had never stopped loving, no matter how hard she tried. She did not answer, not yet, but she took his hand. It was a start. 3 months later, Los Angeles, California. Kendra stood on the deck of a beautiful house in the Hollywood Hills, watching Micah play in the backyard with a golden retriever puppy named Machi. The sun was setting over the city, painting everything gold and pink. The Pacific Ocean glittered in the distance. She had not agreed to come back to Los Angeles immediately after that night in Newark. First, she made Siwoo prove himself. He flew to Brooklyn every weekend for 2 months. He sat in her tiny cafe and ate pastries and watched Micah with wonder in his eyes. He learned how to braid Micah's hair, badly at first, then better with practice. He read bedtime stories in both English and Korean. He did not pressure Kendra for anything. He did not demand. He did not threaten. He just showed up, again and again. Slowly, Kendra's walls came down. She remembered why she had fallen in love with him in the first place. The gentleness beneath the danger. The way he looked at her like she was the most precious thing in the world. The way he made her feel safe even when everything around them was chaos. She watched him with Micah, the patience, the tenderness. The way his whole face softened when Micah laughed. Siwoo was not a good man, but he was a good father, and that mattered. On the last weekend, before she finally agreed to move, Siwoo took her to dinner at a rooftop restaurant overlooking Manhattan, the same neighborhood where they had confronted each other just weeks before. At the end of the meal, he got down on one knee. "I know I have no right to ask you this," he said. "I know I come with danger and complications and a past stained with things I cannot undo, but I love you, Kendra. I have loved you for 7 years. I never stopped loving you, not for a single day. I will love you until they put me in the ground." He pulled out a ring, simple, elegant, a single diamond that caught the light. "Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving it?" Kendra looked at him, at this man who had broken her heart and put it back together, at this man who had hunted her across a continent and then laid his empire at her feet, at this man who would kill for her, die for her, and also learn to braid her son's hair just to make him smile. She said yes. The wedding was small, just family and close friends at an estate in Napa Valley. Denise flew in from Atlanta with her husband and kids. Jocelyn stood as maid of honor. Naomi, fully recovered from her ordeal, served as a bridesmaid. Siwoo's grandmother's ring served as Kendra's something old, passed down from Seoul to Los Angeles to this moment. Micah served as ring bearer. He almost dropped the rings twice, tripping over his own feet in his tiny tuxedo. Everyone laughed, including Siwoo, whose smile was bigger than Kendra had ever seen it. They honeymooned in Jeju Island, off the coast of South Korea. Micah came with them because neither Kendra nor Siwoo could bear to be separated from him. They explored volcanic caves and swam in crystal-clear waters and ate the best seafood of their lives. Micah learned to say, "I love you" in Korean, and Siwoo cried the first time he heard it. Now they were home, in this house that Siwoo had bought specifically for them, away from the Malibu mansion with its memories of blood and fear. A fresh start, a new chapter. Siwoo still ran his empire. He still made decisions Kendra did not ask about. He still carried the weight of a violent legacy on his shoulders. But he had drawn a bright line between his business and his family. Micah would never know the details. Kendra would never be in danger again. He had made sure of that. Victor Choi was serving a life sentence in federal prison. His organization had crumbled without him. The threats had been neutralized. The enemies had been destroyed. They were safe. The sliding door opened behind Kendra, and Siwoo stepped onto the deck. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, pulling her close against his chest. "What are you thinking about?" he asked softly. "Everything," she said. "The past, the future, how strange life is, how terrifying those years were, how I never thought I would end up here." "Where is here?" She turned in his arms to face him. "Happy," she said. "Safe home with you." Siwoo smiled, that rare, beautiful smile that transformed his whole face. "I spent 5 years missing you," he said. "I spent 5 years feeling like half of me was gone. I never want to feel that way again." "You will not," Kendra promised. I am not running anymore. I am exactly where I want to be. Micah's laughter rang out across the backyard as Machi knocked him over and licked his face. Kendra and Siwoo turned to watch their son, their miracle, the living proof that something beautiful could grow from fear and pain and misunderstanding. He is happy, Siwoo said quietly. He is, Kendra agreed. Because of you, because you protected him, because you built a life for him even when you were terrified. Kendra shook her head. Because of both of us, because you found us, because you fought for us. Siwoo pulled her closer, resting his chin on top of her head. I will always fight for you, he said. Both of you, for the rest of my life. The sun sank below the horizon, leaving the sky streaked with purple and orange. Micah ran toward them, the puppy at his heels, demanding that they come play. Siwoo picked him up and swung him around, making him shriek with delight. Kendra watched them together, her husband and her son, and felt something she had not felt in years. Peace. She spent 5 years running from this man, 5 years hiding their son, 5 years convinced she had made the right choice. She had been wrong. Some loves were worth the risk. Some families were worth fighting for. Some secrets, when finally revealed, led not to destruction but to redemption. Kendra Holloway stopped running. She stopped hiding. She stopped being afraid. And she finally found home. Thank you so much for watching this story until the very end. If you felt something, anything at all, please hit that subscribe button and leave a comment telling me your favorite part. I read every single comment, and they mean the world to me. Also, let me know what city you are watching from. I love knowing where all my amazing viewers are located. Until next time, stay blessed, stay safe, and remember that love always finds a way.